Hi, this is your host Upil Bhartiya and welcome to State of Energy. Today we have with us once again Dan Brown, Director of Communications at Linux Foundation Energy. Dan, it's great to have you back on the show.
Thank you, Swapnil. Always great to see you.
And today we are going to talk about the Open Sustainability Policy Summit.
It's a 2-day event hosted by Johns Hopkins at their beautiful Washington, D.C. facility on Pennsylvania Avenue, right near Capitol Hill. We will have room for up to 450 folks. And so the Open Sustainability Policy Summit is essentially focused on looking at ways that open source technologies and processes and standards can drive sustainability forward, particularly as it relates to the energy transition and decarbonization of energy systems. And then, of course, this isn't specifically a technical event, even though there will be technical components. It's really focused on how we can collaborate in terms of industry, the open source community, government, and other academia and other stakeholders to find open solutions to drive this transition forward, and how policy, regulations, and lawmaking can impact that.
Who is going to be participating, like speakers or sessions, and then what kind of content we can expect from this summit?
It's 2 days, and so the first day thematically is focused on data. So ways that open data can drive forward sustainability. And so we'll be kicking off with a fantastic keynote from Doug Arendt at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, talking about some of the ways that they are leveraging open data. And then we have, a whole lineup of great speakers on the first day. We have the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. We have the Midwest Independent System Operator, which or MISO, which essentially runs all the high voltage power grids in the Midwest. They'll be doing a joint presentation with GE Vernova, actually, on open data exchanges. And then we'll have others from, say, the technology industry, such as Google and Microsoft. We'll be talking about ways that they're using data, particularly open data, to drive forward their goals for 24/7 carbon neutral, carbon-free energy across their businesses. So that's day one, is the data focus. Then day two is going to be split, with the morning focused on modeling and the afternoon focused on more just generally open source best practices and security. So from the modeling perspective, we again have speakers from government like NREL, again, National Renewable Energy Laboratory. We also have REDEA, which is the transmission system operator for Spain, who will be talking about some of the ways that they're using open source in terms of modeling. And this could be modeling of power systems as a whole, grids specifically. There's a lot of different types of models that go into power systems. And then again, that afternoon, we'll be focused on open source best practices and security. So we're really lucky to have CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, who will be presenting on their recommendations for best practices for keeping open source secure. We're also going to have the Department of Energy presenting. We're going to have a great panel to close things out in the best practices section on OSPOs, open source program offices. So we have representatives from the OSPOs of RTE, which is the transmission system operator for France, along with Department of Homeland Security, and others who will be talking about how folks, whether in government or in the energy sector or in other sectors such as academia, should be and can be using OSPOs to drive best practices and use of open source within their organizations. So lots of great content, lots of fantastic speakers from, again, across government, industry, academia, and others.
When we talk about policies and when we talk about open source, can you talk about how do they complement each other, or how they kind of play a very important role, like sustainability for open source for sustainability, and then maybe we will talk about the policy later on. But I just want to build the relationship between these two.
Sustainability is a very broad word, as you know. It can cover a lot of things. It can mean a lot of different things. For this event, we are pretty focused on sustainability within energy and climate. So that aspect of it. There are a lot of ways that open source is already driving sustainability. We last year released an open sustainability ecosystem report that analyzed, I believe it was over 1,300 open source projects that look at different areas of sustainability, whether it be energy systems, as I've been talking a lot about, or other things like oceans or just general ecosystem monitoring through satellite technologies. A lot of this is being done through open source, but even more can be. Energy systems traditionally are very closed, very black box systems, lots of vendor lock-in. The thing is that the entire energy system has to transform in order to meet our decarbonization goals. And the only way we would argue that that can happen fast enough to prevent the worst impacts of climate change is through open source, by getting everyone together and collaborating, because that way you can innovate faster, you can innovate cheaper, and frankly, most importantly, you can ensure interoperability between all of these different technologies. Because at the end of the day, it's not the traditional sense where power utilities can just buy all of their equipment from one vendor and ensure that it works. Because now you have to work with distributed energy resources that you as the utility may not own, whether that be solar panels on someone's roof or a third-party wind farm, or just electric vehicle chargers. There's a lot of things that are being added to the grid that are out of the utility's control, and so interoperability is key. And really the only way to ensure that is through open software and standards.
Since you have been part of open source community for a very long time, that I look at open source, yes, it is about code, but it's actually more about collaboration. It's more about community. That is the critical. Code development is the easiest part. So, and when we just look at LF Energy, you folks are bringing so many players from different, parts of the energy segment, different stakeholders, different constituents. So can you also talk about that aspect of open source? Because sometimes when we look at open source, most of the people, they just think of as code, but code is the easiest part.
You're right. Yeah, code is the easiest part because that's where folks are incentivized. They need to have code so that they can accomplish whatever end use case they need to accomplish, right? And so the thing is that open source, to your point, is much more than just code. There are many, many folks in the open source community, I would count myself among them, who are not developers. I don't sit around writing code all day. I do things like organize events, help with organizing training courses, just getting the word out and building general awareness around these technologies so that adoption can increase. But not only adoption increasing, but also contributions increasing, because it's essential that we have a wide variety of stakeholders involved, because they do have different reasons for relying on these technologies. In some cases, it's because, yes, they have a technological need. You need to, connect this distributed energy resource. You need to predict what the net load on your grid is going to be tomorrow, so if you need to spin up additional power plants, that sort of thing. But, there are also folks in academia who are interested in this. And, maybe for them, it's just more about, it's less about the reliability of a particular system and more about accomplishing goals around decarbonization and finding new and better ways to do that. Obviously, the government and policymaking audience have their own reasons. They have their own reasons for participating and encouraging open source adoption because they have policy goals. Yes, these things are all related, but they are slightly different. And so folks are coming at it from a different perspective. And so we do need the involvement not only of technologists, but also of researchers, of communicators, of policymakers, of lawmakers, et cetera, in order to ensure that we are, accomplishing all of this quickly, efficiently, effectively, and in a way that really drives the needle forward and is providing those policy benefits and technology benefits that each individual stakeholder is looking for.
We talked about the kind of sessions, talks there will be? We talked about the people who will be, delivering is, talks there. What kind of folks should attend this event?
As I mentioned, there will be technical aspects, but this is not a technical event. This is definitely more of an end user focused and policy focused event. So really anyone with an interest in this area would be welcome to attend. I should note the event is free. So it's definitely open to anyone. We expect many Johns Hopkins students to join as well, which is fantastic because, we would love to get them more involved in this sector from an early stage. But in terms of who we're really looking for to attend, certainly folks who work at power utilities, and they may be technical developer types, which is great, but they also may be more executives who just don't really quite understand open source because it's very new to this industry. As I mentioned earlier, traditionally utilities have used very proprietary vendor locked-in solutions. And so we are, going to be offering a lot of educational material at this event for them. So that's certainly one audience. Then, of course, we're in DC for a reason. We want to talk to lawmakers, whether they be a member of Congress, whether they be a regulator at FERC, whether they be a policymaker at the Department of Energy, or other government departments that simply use energy. We have speakers from Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, because they see this as important as well. So any of that type of government employee, again, whether technical or not, doesn't really make a difference because they are going to get valuable information and insight about the impact that open source can have and how they as policymakers can impact it. And then, of course, our existing community, anyone in the technology sector, anyone who is a established vendor to power systems and energy systems, they are going to have a lot to say. They're going to have a lot of information to share. And also for some of them, open source is relatively new. So this will be a great benefit for them to understand what impact it's having on their industry and how they can help drive that forward.
Of course, this is kind of your or LF Energy's baby. So every session is important. But if I ask you, what are the can't miss activities there at this summit?
We have a large auditorium. So you don't have to pick and choose between different ones, so don't miss any of the content would be number one. But beyond that, we will have a number of networking opportunities that should be really valuable for folks, especially these different types of stakeholders, to get to know each other because there aren't a lot of opportunities for that to happen. So during coffee breaks and lunch, we will have tables set up that are going to be separated by specific topics. So if you're, say, interested in AI for open source AI solutions for energy, there will be a table that is dedicated to that. So that just means that if you go and sit at that table, other folks should also be interested in that topic. And so you can network with them and talk about, that particular area. There will, be other ones focused on data or on modeling or on security. So you can really pick and choose during the networking opportunities what you want to focus on and meet like-minded individuals. And then, of course, we're still working out the details, but we will have an evening reception on Thursday after the conclusion of the sessions so that folks can, again, get to know each other in a very casual environment.
Dan, thank you so much for taking time out today and talk about the summit. And I look forward to seeing you at the summit. Thank you.
Absolutely, Swapna. We look forward to it as well. And if anyone wants to join us, they can simply Google Open Sustainability Policy Summit, or the official website is opensource.engineering.jhu.edu.